Hey guys, it's Michelle Nichols, photographer based out of Boise, Idaho, and I have a quick tutorial for you today on basically how to warm up your images without messing up with the skin tone. So first, I'm going to do this basic tutorial in Lightroom, and once you import your photos and choose which one you want to work on, you're going to go from your Library tab to your Develop tab. And before I get started, the best way to avoid messing up the skin tone is to have your right exposure from right out of the camera. You really want to nail your exposure, because if you have a really underexposed or overexposed image to begin with, it's really hard to rescue that skin tone. Alright guys, so the first thing you're going to want to do, and this is going to be your best friend, and it's probably going to save your life, and I can show a Photoshop version of this later, but is your temperature. And if you guys are familiar with Kelvin, there's usually a rule of thumb, usually midday is about 5,500, and then as the evening goes on, it gets warmer. And this was when the sun was setting, so even though it's over at 6,000, 6,000, I'm going to warm it up even more. And you can just play with it and toggle it. You can even see already, like, bam, that's getting really warm. Obviously, don't go too crazy. Let's see, that's probably really good right there. And you can mess with your pinks and stuff. I actually like the balance of the pinks, so I'm going to leave that there. The exposure is pretty good, I feel like, for my style. I always like to do a little recovery because it's a little hot on her hand, so I bump that up to maybe 20. I am going to do a little fill light because the brimmer hat gets it pretty dark in there, and for my style in particular, I don't like it too contrasty. Maybe just pump up the blacks because there's quite a bit of black in there. All right. Brightness I feel is pretty good. That's going to really change your photo fast, but I am going to bring up the contrast just a little bit. And I love, love, love this clarity tool. This you can go crazy on too, so just be careful, but this just sharpens everything up. Let's see here. Especially on portraits, this can get like really crunchy kind of look, so you got to be really careful with that. And let's just kick up the vibrance a little bit. It's a pretty muted background, so you can get away with a little pump of color. Be careful with this on skin tone. I normally will actually decrease these two. That helps with evening out skin tone as well, but don't ever go more than like -10 and stuff, because then they start looking washed out. Monotone image as it is, so I want to make sure it's nice and colorful. And I actually do have a lot of presets loaded in here, but I'm going to avoid those today because many of you probably might not have presets, so we're going to go from the basics. Okay, so split toning. I love, love, love this, especially for lookbooks. You want, like, if you mess with highlights and shadows, you're going to have so much fun. Your whole world's going to open up. So what you're doing is you're doing the tonal color of the highlights and stuff. So, for example, if I wanted like a yellow, I pick a yellow in your colors, and then you can move it. And look at that already. It's bam, huge difference. And you can have fun. You can go with pinks and purples if you want like a cool tone image and stuff. So I tend to mess with shadows more than highlights, just to so it doesn't look crazy. I'm gonna go for like a warmer green tone on this one. Let's get and then your balance. Your balance helps a lot too. So you see how like this looks like an alien. So let's bump that up. I bump my balance up pretty high when I start going with there, and then we kind of get that cool. In fact, I might saturate that a little bit more. Yes, it's looking a little bit more like how I like it. Perfect. And that takes a long time. That's just have fun, mess with it, toggle it, and find out what you like the best. I always sharpen my image to at least in the 40s. Just like it extra sharpened. Luminous, there's probably not a lot of noise. I might bump that up a little bit. Okay, next we got lens corrections. I rarely use this. Usually, I mean, this can be helpful if you do feel like your image is distorted, especially if you're photographing buildings, or especially with people, if you have like a wide angle lens, like a 35mm, and you're really close to them, that can start like morphing their head to like a bobblehead. But I did this with a 50, and I usually know about how far I need to be. I do feel like this image isn't distorted, so I'm not going to worry about that today, especially if you're beginning. I wouldn't worry too much about this section. In fact, I would say you're better off if you just get educated a little bit about generally the distances, like what type of lens to use for what occasion, and I can do another video on that as well, but I wouldn't mess with that one too much. And the last one I kind of mess with is just the vignette. Oops, that was already down there. Probably from a copy from another image, but I don't go too crazy on it, but I do like having a little bit, and they do a very nice vignette in Lightroom, so you don't have that like harsh circle line. I think it feathers out really well. And you can mess with the midpoint and all that stuff if you want. And then this is grain. I don't normally touch grain. You can see that you can apply a lot of grain. It's just not usually my style. I like it really clean, so I'm probably not going to add any, but that is an option for you. All right, guys, so that's a very quick course, but let's look at the before and after. Let me change that. I don't usually like that view. I like that view. Okay, so you can see how cold the image was beforehand and how much warmer it is now. And just with those little tweaks of those sliders, how much more it brings to life. And then you can even see the skin tone. Even though we messed with the saturation or the shadows, we still kept it really nice, and so she still looks like her skin is normal. So that's really important. So the main things I would say I would concentrate on is your temperature and your tint, these two slider bars here, and your highlights and shadows when you're trying to get the image a cool effect without affecting the skin tone. So don't be afraid to mess around, see what works for you, and find the style. But I hope you guys find that helpful. Like I said, I can do a Photoshop version of this, and usually after this I will export it and do my fine touches in Photoshop. You can edit skin and stuff in Lightroom, but I work faster, and just a personal preference, I guess, that I can edit more in Photoshop for those fine details. So, all right, guys, thank you for tuning in and listening to me, and I hope that was helpful. And if you have questions, of course, comment them down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!